Hey everybody, waitingfornextyear.com podcast. Monday morning, Cleveland Browns lose a heartbreaker 45-42 in overtime in Oakland against the Raiders, giving John Gruden his first victory as a returning head coach. The Cleveland Browns fall to 1-2-1. It's a heartbreaker, but I can't tell you that my heart was really broken. I don't want to go through the whole loser thing where I blame the refs and this, that, the other thing. The Browns could have and should have won that game, even with the referees turning over the 3rd and 1 that, they said Carlos Hyde ended up being short even after on the field, calling it a first down and then magically inventing enough visual evidence where there just couldn't possibly have been enough to move the ball an extra 3 inches back or whatever they decided. I'm just not that mad. Maybe I'm still in the honeymoon phase with Baker Mayfield. I look at that game, I see how close the Browns were to winning, and I know how on a dime the narrative changes if the Browns somehow hit a field goal instead of give up a field goal in that game to lose it. Because Baker Mayfield put up 42 points with the Cleveland Browns. He defied giving the ball away 4 times. He defied drops. And the Browns found a big play guy in Nick Chubb. They got a big play out of Antonio Callaway even after he dropped a couple of balls and basically gave up that interception. I know he fell down, but the ball hit his hands, and and Garyon Conley intercepts it and returns it for a touchdown, pick 6. Sometimes those pick 6s are on the quarterbacks, and other times they're not. That interception that Baker Mayfield threw at the end of regulation where the Browns had a chance to go down and get in field goal range, I thought that was more Baker Mayfield's fault. I also thought he kind of put the ball up there and gave Antonio Callaway a chance to make a play, and Callaway didn't. But if I'm assigning blame, it's like 20% Antonio Callaway and 80% Baker Mayfield for throwing into that coverage. Antonio Callaway could have, if it's Antonio Brown or AJ Green, there's a pretty good chance that one of those guys makes a play on the ball and defies the odds. But Antonio Callaway is a rookie. I'm not giving up on him. I think he could be that guy, but he didn't make that play in that spot. And Baker Mayfield ends up looking bad for throwing into that coverage. But it's ultimately on him. He didn't make the safe play to try and get the Browns into field goal range. So I don't know. I guess I'm mad. I wanted the Browns to win, but I can't manufacture the level of outrage that I might feel in a different year. This isn't the year. This was never going to be the year for the Browns to make the playoffs or challenge for the playoffs. Anything that they do is bonus. And maybe I'm just sounding like a loser. Maybe that makes me a loser, but I just can't get all that upset about it. There's too much good stuff going on for the Browns compared to what we went through last year and the year before. And maybe that's just how low the bar has become. But I was very happy. I was very happy even with the mistakes that Baker Mayfield made on the field. He led an offense to 42 points. Overall, he put enough points to win a game. The Cleveland Browns defense, they gave up 45 points technically, but one was a pick 6, the other was a fumble, I think inside the 10, maybe inside the 15-yard line. They were put in some really bad spots. They had some gift-wrapped points. The Raiders had some gift-wrapped points there. And I don't know. I thought the Browns played pretty well, just not quite well enough to win. I thought, I get mad at the refs too, trust me. But the Browns should have had that fumble return for a touchdown, but somehow magically they blew the whistle before. In the grass, forward progress, that was that was probably even more egregious than going to the replay and overturning that 3rd and 1 where they said it was a first down. But in the end, the Browns had plays after those plays. They had chances to win games. They had a chance to stop a 2-point conversion. They did not do that. And so, I mean, it's NFL refereeing. How many countless dozens of players, not countless dozens, I guess we could count them, but dozens of players in and out of the game. The Raiders ran 90 plays all by themselves. And then the Browns, there's so many moving pieces in a game. Refs are always going to mess stuff up. Always. Always. Sometimes it's going to be worse than others. But the Browns had a 2-touchdown lead in the second half. And it didn't come down to the 1 or 2 plays that the refs screwed up. It just didn't. I'm salty about it. I think there's time to complain about it. But that's not ultimately what sunk the Browns. So I can't be disappointed. I'm looking forward. I think the Browns played pretty well yesterday. I think they had a real good chance to win. I thought it was a pretty good performance by their rookie quarterback. I thought it was a coming out party for Nick Chubb with those giant plays and the 2 touchdowns. And I look forward to seeing how this team goes. And that's really what a season like this is about. Is which way are they trending? And ever since Baker Mayfield took over and won his opening game against the Jets, the Browns have been trending upward, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next. So it's like they always say that old cliche in golf, if you hit those 1 or 2 good shots are the ones that keep you coming back. Well, the Browns this year, in 2018, in a year where I didn't have any expectations of them challenging for the playoffs, they put a couple of shots on the golf holes that make me want to come back and see what they do next. And I'm excited to see what they can do against the Ravens at home. I'm excited to see what this defense can do against John Harbaugh and Joe Flacco and the rest of the Ravens team. I'm excited to see what Baker Mayfield can do with another week of preparation and coming off a tough loss in Oakland where he turned the ball over too much. I want to see how he reacts to that. I want to see how these receivers react to all the dropped passes that they were responsible for with Baker Mayfield, and see if they can turn that around or somehow make an adjustment and get used to the extra zip that he seems to be putting on the ball, because Baker Mayfield put those balls in a lot of catchable spots, and it was bouncing off receiver hands, including uncharacteristically for Jarvis Landry. I thought it was not as much as for Nick Chubb, but it was kind of a coming out party for David Njoku as well. I thought he showed some things. Baker Mayfield used the middle of the field. Darren Fells with that really long touchdown reception, the catch, and then the run after the catch for the touchdown was really, really impressive. It was also really good to see Agba back. This defense, man, I know they gave up 45 points. It's hard to brag about a defense that gave up 45 points, but honestly, I don't know, was it 3 touchdowns that were kind of gift wrap for the Raiders? I know it was 2. One was a defensive touchdown, and maybe 2 more were just gift wrap deep in Browns territory. So I don't know how the rest of you feel about it. I'm really excited for this Browns team. I think they have a lot of the pieces they need to challenge for the playoffs next year. And I hate to be the one who starts pointing at next year already after week 4, because we've got a lot of football left. It's just that my expectation for this team was never about this year. This year was about proving that they had something, that they have something on the offensive side of the ball, that they have something on the defensive side of the ball, that the coaching staff was worthy of keeping together. And I know that's kind of a hot button issue for a lot of people with Hugh Jackson, because Hugh Jackson could have and maybe should have been fired after going 1-31 or whatever. But as I said going into the season, whether he should have or he could have or should have been fired, he wasn't, and he was out of excuses, and he still is out of excuses. And he got that first monkey off his back. The Browns won that first game, and now it's up to him to make sure. I don't know that there's a win total that the Browns need to have this year, but I feel like this team is still trending up, even after a gut-wrenching loss in overtime in Oakland, I felt like that was a trending up kind of game. I'll stop short of using moral victory, although jokingly, I think it's funny to call everything a moral victory. It's kind of trollish, but it's funny to me. But it's not a moral victory, but I do think this team is trending upward instead of downward. And right, wrong, or indifferent, that's the burden of proof for this season. That's what the Browns need to show that they can be, is a team that's trending upward and one that's going to legitimately challenge for a playoff spot in 2019. They were almost never, maybe 5% chance they were going to challenge for a playoff spot in 2018. And certainly after a loss to the Raiders, it gets that much more difficult, because that was one of the games that you could have pinpointed as a possible win, one that kind of sets them on a path, et cetera, et cetera. But it's not about this season. It's about next season. And this season, even in a loss, even in a 45-42 loss, I think that you can kind of see some good, or more good than bad, that's not going to be true in a lot of other NFL cities. It's not going to be true in, it's not going to be true in Green Bay or New England or even Pittsburgh. And I'm sorry to say that it is still true in Cleveland, but a loss isn't necessarily the only determining factor for this team. They're still so young, and yes, they're challenging, and yes, they spent a bunch of money in free agency and made trades for Demarius Randall and Jarvis Landry, but this year is about proving that they're ready to challenge next year. It's about learning experiences. It's about getting this team ready to go. And all things considered, I learned a lot about the Browns yesterday that made me feel like they're going to be ready to go for next year. So give me some feedback. I know that not everybody will see it that way. I just can't spend this whole day complaining about the refs or bemoaning our rookie quarterback making one or two too many mistakes during a 45-42 road loss against the Raiders, who were desperate to win their first game of the season and the first game since John Gruden came back. So let me know what you think. I'll talk to you on Twitter. I'm sure I'll be back later this week. Jeff Namina and I are trying to get back together. I was drunk at a pig roast last week, so we didn't podcast last week. I'll get back with Jeff Namina. Dave Sterling and I have talked about getting back together. Of course, Ben Axelrod's sitting out there as well as somebody I should be podcasting with for the 3 Sports podcast. So we'll talk to you soon. Also, maybe I'll finally pull up somebody for the Indians, because the Indians are getting ready to start the playoffs on Friday against Houston. I'm not ignoring them. It just, this Indian season has felt a lot like one of the Cavaliers seasons where the regular season didn't matter. We're just waiting for the playoffs. The playoffs are finally here-ish by the end of the week. So maybe we'll get some tribe talk. We can certainly get some tribe talk in with Jeff Namina, assuming that podcast happens. So don't worry. I'm not ignoring the tribe. They are one of the best teams that we've ever gotten to root for in an Indians uniform. So we will talk about them. It is finally time. The playoffs are here. They've got a tough opening playoff matchup, but if they can somehow peak at the right time, this could be one of the most special playoff years in Cleveland Indians history. So we won't ignore them completely. We'll be talking about them soon. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time. It's been the waitingfornextyear.com podcast.